Hey, welcome back to K&A Off Grid. We had a question from one of our subscribers or someone that watched our videos in regards to our garden and to run down the spacing that we did for everything. And so that's what we're going to do, is we're going to run down our entire garden. We're going to go through, I would say, 2 gardens, 3 gardens, and then we're also going to go through our greenhouse as well. We're also going to talk about the different things that we've learned from last year to this year, and things that systems we've implemented with the gardens this year as well, especially being that we live in the northern climates. So we're gonna work our way back and start from this side and move back along the garden, and we're gonna run down through everything here. So right now, these are the beets that we have coming up. We got the beets are about 10 to 12 inches apart, and they are 18 inches in rows. One thing that we did with the beets didn't do with the beets last year was hill them, and we still have to do that with them this year. However, I just want to let them grow a little bit more. And the reason we're going to try hilling them this year is because the idea is they grow much like potatoes, and so we'll see if that helps them yield any more. If you have any experience with hilling beets and they've done better or worse, please leave a comment in the comment section. We're going to move over next to carrots. Now, if you've seen one of our previous videos, I was worried about our carrots not coming up. So they eventually did. God blessed us with some carrots this year. It's been a struggle. It was a struggle last year not having the carrots, but they've come up. So from the beets over to the first row of carrots, we have 18 inches, 12 inches in between the rows of carrots, and then we have the carrots between 8 and 10 inches apart as well. Moving over, we have radishes. Radishes are basically, these first rows are all from seed, not any transplants or anything like that. So the radishes we just planted, they were, I believe, 5 to 8 inches apart. They're about a foot from the carrots next to them. Moving forward on this short row here are celery. Our celery was in pots a little too long. We planted them a little too close, and the clusters are just starting to take off now. We've had a lot of cold weather recently, and it was getting close to freezing even now in June. However, this past week it's been getting fairly warm, and everything's been really starting to take off. Now, these are the potatoes, the next 4 rows. They're about a month ahead from what we've had last year, and we're really excited about that. One thing that I'm doing differently with the potatoes this year is my watering method. Instead of watering from the top on the hills, I'm just dropping the hose down at the bottom here and letting it run down the rows, and waiting for the water to hit the far row before I shut it off, and that seems to be working very well. So the potatoes, we've got, I think altogether we have 90 hills throughout the garden here, because we got another section in the back. Let's go through the rowing here. So we have 3-foot rows from potato to potato, and then in between each plant we also have 2 feet. So that's kind of what our trial I guess is. Again, everyone has their own ways of doing potatoes, and there's various types of potatoes. We have 4 different types of potatoes in here, so nothing's set in stone that they're gonna do well or this is the best method. This is just what we're trying. The next row over is something that we're really excited about, is our purple cabbage. So we have all purple cabbage except for the 2 that we had to use fillers in for, and those are golden cabbage. So the cabbage, we have 4 feet from the potatoes over to the first cabbage, and then from the cabbage to cabbage we have 4 feet as well. Just because they do grow. We are mid-June here, and the leaves are just as big. Some of the ones further down there, they are much bigger than just my hand alone. Now, because we needed the 4 feet for the next set of plants, we decided to add an extra 2 feet, and we put in a walkway. That way it's easier to access everything in the garden. Next we have 5 rows of onions. I believe our first 3 rows looks like white onions, and then we have 2 rows of red onions. The onions we planted about 6 to 8 inches apart from plant to plant, and the rows are about 12 to 18 inches apart. And the further you plant these root vegetables, the more potential you have of the root vegetable to grow bigger. So you don't want to go 5 feet in between, because there's a point that they just won't grow that big. So look and see what you can do in your own garden. Again, this is a northern climate, a lot drier climate. Depending on where you live, it might be a lot of, well, depending on where you live, it's gonna be different. That's hands down. Next is our garlic. Garlic is the same as your onions. So we had 1 foot from the onions, and then we spaced them 6 to 8 inches. However, some of them didn't come up. As you can see also in the lettuce row, we're missing a little patch there. That's because we had an animal trample through the garden earlier this year. Kind of did some damage, but we were able to salvage most of it, and it is what it is. Quick tip: if you ever have pests in your garden or anything like that, a trail cam is a great investment so that you can see when and what it is, right? Moving forward, we have our iceberg lettuce. And this is, we space it so that we can get some head lettuce instead of just a straight leaf lettuce. And so what we have from the garlic over to the lettuce is 1 foot, and then between the plants we have 2 feet. Now, if you plant the lettuce a lot closer, you'll have leaf lettuce. You won't get a head of lettuce. So depending on what your preference is, that's going to determine on your planting method as well. Next we have our potatoes, which is our another row. We're not going to talk about that. We have 2 okras. Okras really didn't come up this year. So out of the 6 that we've planted, 2 came up, and the spacing on those 2 are about 5 feet. And they are about 4 feet from the cabbage row and the potato row. We also ended up planting some cucumbers in between the okra and the cabbage to see how that works out, because we did have another row of carrots in here that didn't come up this year, and we just said, forget it, let's turn over the soil, and we're gonna do more cucumbers. Moving over, we have golden cabbage Copenhagen cabbage and yellow cabbage, or what you might also call a golden cabbage. The spacing on the cabbage is the exact same spacing on the purple cabbage. So you have your 4 feet, your 4 feet, and so on and so forth. At the back there we have broccoli, and then we have cauliflower at the front here. The spacing from the cabbage to our cauliflower is 2 feet, and the spacing from your cauliflower or your broccoli between plant to plant is 4 feet. Moving over next is Brussels sprouts. This is something that we've never grown. I've never grown it. I've never seen how it's grown or any of that. So this is our first time doing, well, we tried it last year and the goats got to them before we could eat them. So this year they're in a different location. Goats are fenced out of this spot, and they're safe now. So they're already, I'd say, 3 times the size that they were last year. From what I gather, they get really tall. The spacing on these are 4 feet from your cauliflower or your broccoli, depending on what you're looking at. And then in between the plants, we have 3 feet or 36 inches. Now here where the wet spots are, that is our cantaloupe, or Yeah, our cantaloupe seeds. We did a bunch of transplants this year, and a lot of our crawlers either were in the containers too long, or after we planted them, because they were outgrowing their containers, it still got too cold. Like I was saying, we're in June here and it's still getting almost down to the freezing mark overnight, and the crawlers don't really like that, especially the cantaloupe, the squashes, the pumpkins, things of that nature, cucumbers. But we replanted everything, and so we'll run down that too. From spot to spot, we have 5 feet in between. We have a couple more that have come up there already, so that's why you don't see the wet spots, and I already watered this morning. Then moving over next, so from the cantaloupes to the squashes, we have 6 feet from row to row. Our squashes now, they're going to be two different types, because we have a mixture of seeds. So they're going to be, I think, a summer squash, and then there's going to be a spaghetti squash in this as well. However, this is the only transplant that's still trying to make it. I think I might just yank it out because we have more coming up. But from your plants, excuse me, the flies out here are getting pretty bad, so I might be jumping around on camera a little bit. The squashes, we have them, like I said, 6 feet apart from the cantaloupes, and then we have them 5 feet apart from plant to plant. And then moving forward, we kind of tossed in some extra plants in our garden here, so we added some more tomatoes. We have, I believe, 3 different types of tomatoes in here. And then we have our pumpkins. The one pumpkin is still trying to cling on. The other one did not make it. However, we planted our last seed of pumpkin and she came up. So we're super stoked about that. Pumpkins are massive, massive plants. So you need a lot of room. So hence why we only have 2. You need probably about 12 feet in between each plant. And then they also grow, I believe, at 12 feet length as well. Got some peppers just scattered around too. All right, now we're just gonna quickly check the last fruits that we have in the garden, and that is our watermelon. Our watermelon, our transplants did not make them. We had 2 of them. Obviously, they're not there anymore, but we do have new seedlings coming up. Being that they're crawlers and they're big crawlers, you need some space, much like the pumpkins. So we got 12 feet in between each plant here, or each seedling for now, and then you also need a crawling space and branching out space. So this is going to be the part 1 of our garden. This is our biggest garden, and we're going to finish off the video at this point. If you want to see the rest of the gardens that include our zucchinis, our cucumbers, our Swiss chard lettuces, beans and peas, tomatoes, and peppers that are up in the greenhouse, stay tuned and check out our part 2 of this series, which will be dropping later this week. If you haven't joined us on TikTok or Instagram, please do so. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you on the next one.